Hello, my name is Mark Stephen Wade, and I am an avid photographer, and I hope you are too. And if you're not, stick around and hopefully you'll become one. I really just want to encourage everybody who wants to learn photography, even if just to make better photographs than what you're doing now, just for your family, just for the prints that you might put on your own wall in your own home. This is a good place to learn those basic things and get those learning things elements under your belt so you can start practicing them. Because even though it may be more simple than it has been ever, it's still going to take a lot of practice. But once you get it, it all becomes second nature. Today we want to talk about another basic. That basic is called white balance. It's called white balance, but it really has to do more with color than it does whiteness. I'm sure there's a reason for it being called that. But essentially, and for the most part, what it's for is to set the overall look of your final output. If you look behind me, that wall is white, and those shades over there are gray. And those colors are pretty true. I'm looking in my monitor right now, and I'm using a different camera than I was last time. And hopefully the sound is improved as well. I apologize for those first few videos. I was scrambling to get my sound right, and it didn't come out right. Anyway, I had to fix it. But we're going to talk about white balance and why it's important to your overall photography. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about shooting RAW and about shooting JPEG and the differences of those two things, and why you may want to do one and why I think you should practice one before you start doing the other. So we're going to start off with white balance. As you can see, like I said, behind me, that wall is white, and it's coming out white. It's coming out correct. I'm pretty sure that if you looked at my first videos that I made on the basics, I was scrambling, like I said, for lighting and all that sort of stuff. And I had some kind of weird lighting going on the left. My face looked a little yellow on this side. And I didn't really care at that point. I just wanted to get the message out that I'm making these videos, and they're here to help people who want to become better photographers. So I left it just the way it was, and that's fine. I'm not, I'm good with it. But as you can tell, everything is looking a little differently. Well, one of the things that we have to understand about white balance is it's helping you balance color overall. Now, there are several different ways of doing that. There are presets in your camera for like fluorescent lights, or if you're a pro camera guy and you're using tungsten lights or something, there's settings for that, and there's settings for sodium lights when you're outside. And what it attempts to do, say you're outside and it's dark and you're shooting under sodium lights, they're going to be very orange, and the rest of your photograph is going to be very, very orange. And so that setting will help the final output not look so orange. But there are other ways of doing it, and I prefer myself to set what is known as Kelvin. Kelvin temperature is, for me, a lot more, that's the way I learned. Okay, the boss guy who taught me, I took some workshops, and he showed us how to use Kelvin temperature, because that will get you through the whole range. If you're shooting under fluorescent lamps, you're going to drop it down to 3,300, maybe even lower, something like that, to get some sort of correct look to it. And if you're outside in bright daylight, you might crank it up to 5,500. That is a standard Kelvin temperature for daylight, 5,500. When you see a lot of lights that are offered today for sale for professional use, or even for You know, if you want to make good photographs at home, good images of portraits of your own family, even if that's what you wanted to do. Lighting is looking for 5500. That's the lighting I have in here right now for the most part. The majority's in the back wall, bouncing it off the wall back toward me this way. And there's a couple of side lights. I don't know what the temperature is of those, but they're so faint that the backlighting is bouncing forward and kind of drowning any of those effects. So Kelvin temperature for me is what I look for, and I would advise anybody else to use that as well. I would also look to see what other professionals do, or what professionals do. Again, I'm not a professional. And see what they say. Maybe they use auto white balance. I doubt that. The issue with using auto white balance is if say you're doing photography or even a video and you're pointing at one direction with one sort of lighting, it will change if you're pointing to another type of lighting. And if you're making a video and you're panning or something, that you're going to have these color shifts all through your video, and it's not going to look good. It's not going to look right at all. So it's better just to do it manually with your Kelvin temperature. Now I'm going to show you how you would do it in a Sony camera. This is the A7 III. And again, sorry if you hate Sony menus, that's fine. You know, everybody, you just check out your own camera, find out how to find your ISO settings. Sometimes it's in the menu, sometimes it's who knows where, you know. Sometimes there's a button, you know, like Nikon is really good about putting a button where you just push it and you can set your ISO. They understand that sometimes you're on the fly and you're having to change it quite often. So, but with this camera, I'm just going to go into this little function button right here. It's this FN, and you can see this comes up, this little bar right here. Let's see if we can get that. There's a little bar with information right there. I don't know if you can see that. And one of those information bar is right there, and it says K for Kelvin, and it says it's right now it's set at 5500. If I press that, then I get all of these other options, right? And there's this, you can see it on the right, or yeah, on the right, on my right. All the options, like there's, I guess it's outdoor fishing. There's a fish. I don't know what that means. Fish has lights. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry, I should know that. Average white balance, maybe that's what it says. AWB. See what it says. Underwater auto. I've never done that, so I didn't know that. It's pretty cool. There's flash. There's fluorescent daylight. There's all of these different options. Cloudy day, shade, and all those different scenarios carry with it a different sort of issue that might happen. Now, if you're outside, I just set it to 5500 and go from there, and just I don't mess with it. If I go to the shade, I don't change it. I just leave it at 55. If later I feel like I need to fix something, that's what I'll do. But so for me, I like to keep it under Kelvin. There it is, right there. There it is. I'm sorry, it took me a minute. So there's Kelvin. It's set at 5500. If I wanted to set it, I would just scroll to the right. I would scroll to the right with this button and get on it and then change the number. But I'm going to leave it right where it is because I don't want to have to change it again. So that's what white balance is about. And it's important to learn this, okay? It's important to learn it. Don't let your camera choose it for you, because sometimes it'll choose something that won't look good and it'll be very difficult. If you have to fix it in post, it might be very difficult. And if you're shooting video, you absolutely have to get that right. Okay, you don't have to get it right. If you're shooting raw video, which I've never done, okay, there I am. My unprofessional self again. I don't shoot raw video. Why would I do that? There's no need for me to do it. If I decide I'm going to make a movie documentary or something or whatever, I might do that. But if I'm shooting my family, you know, if I'm just making videos of us going to the park or something, I'm not going to do that. But if you're shooting video on auto white balance in a professional setting, you're going to get horrible results in my estimation if it's an uncontrolled environment. So I would just advise that you learn to set your own Kelvin temperature in different situations and practice at it. If you're going to go on a professional shoot, practice it. Before you do anything, go there and practice and see what kind of lighting they have, and then test it. Now, a lot of times, as long as you get close, if you have to fix anything in editing, you won't have a lot of trouble. But if you're way off, you may have real problems. So that's what I got for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you become an avid photographer, just for, if nothing else, just to be able to make good photographs. Now, we're going to be talking about prints at some point here, because why would we make our own prints? It's pretty important. Now, I'm not going to talk about it anytime soon, but it's coming up along with a lot of other things I've got rattling around in my head. And anyway, thank you again, and we'll see you next time.